Town Board meeting for June 5th, 2023 to order. I welcome everybody. I haven't seen a crowd this big since the annual meeting. All right, first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Patrick, what do we got?
Mr. Chair, if it pleases the board, we do have a couple of additions. First of all, to your consent agenda, please add 5J. That will be a Vadnais Lake Area Water Management Organization discussion or study, I should say. Additional information under 7A for the 1620 Hammond Road Special 3-Dog License for you to review. And then staff is also adding resolution for the board to consider this evening regarding special funding for capital improvement projects coming from state legislation this year. So we'll do that as 8B.
8B as in Baker?
Yeah.
All right, does the board have anything else?
No.
I would suggest, because it looks like we have a large crowd, I don't know how many of you are here for open time. We have a closed session with our attorney at the end of the meeting. So I'm going to move open time up before that, because otherwise we have to clear the room, and I don't want to send you all out and have you come back in. So we'll move open time up before a closed session with the attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Word for the board?
Yep.
All right, I need a motion to approve.
Move to approve the amended agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, item 3 is approval of payment of the bills.
I signed off on those. Move to approve payment of the bills.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. We have a number of consent agenda items, if the board pleases, or if there's interest to pull any.
I will move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, that motion carries. All right, moving on, we have old business, we have none. So item 7 is a public hearing. We have to waive the reading. Let me get to it
Mr.
here.
Chair, I'll move to waive that it was properly published, the hearing notice in the paper, and waive the reading.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, then I need a motion to open up a public hearing.
I'll move to open the public hearing.
Oops, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, Patrick, you gonna overview this?
There's not much to overview there, Mr. Chair. It's for your consideration as to whether or not, based upon the information that's been submitted, if this is something that you would be in favor of. I believe we're allowed to do this, correct, Chad?
Yes.
So it's really down to your consent at this point.
All right, does the staff, or the board have any questions of staff?
No, I thought the information was helpful.
Steve?
My only question to the staff had to do with the discussion of the fourth dog as it relates to a temporary situation. We've had this in the past come up, and generally, I'm not in favor of issuing a 3-dog license when there's a fourth dog in the household on a temporary basis when there's no temporary notice defined. So I have an issue with temporary.
Would you like us to give us some date parameters?
Yes.
Okay, what would you like?
Personally, I'd like it back in 3 months because I want to make sure we're actively looking to find a home for what it involves is a son moved back into the home and has his own dog. And just for the people, so they have some idea what I'm talking about. And we have 2 dogs allowed, 3 dogs by a special license. 4 makes it a real problem, and without knowing what temporary is, I'm not in favor of it.
Okay. Can the board
Well,
pass this subject
I
to?
would suggest we open it up to the public and hear from the applicant first, if that makes sense.
Makes sense.
If there's no other questions of Patrick? No. All right, I need a motion up for public comment.
Move to open it up for public comment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Lisa Abernathy, are you here? We have so many people here. Just come up, introduce your name and your address.
Lisa Abernathy at 1620 Hammond Road.
Okay, do you understand the concern of Mr.
I do,
Ruzek?
and the reason we have the fourth dog, I had two, he had two. He owned a house in Mora, he sold it, he's moved back home till he can buy another house. But with the interest rates going as high as they are and the market not coming down, it's taking a little longer than we expected. So until he buys a house, so it's not forever, it's just until he finds a house, because he wants to be closer to here for the 4 dogs. They're good dogs. In fact, animal control told me to push for the 4th dog. He said the permit is for 3 or plus. And so Mario told me, he goes, push for that 4th dog. There's no reason why you can't have the 4th dog. That's what Mario told me, the animal control guy. He told me to push for it. They're good dogs.
Well, Mario might be a little bit uninformed that 3 is our maximum, so.
Yeah. But there's always exceptions to rules.
Well, that's what 3 is. 2 is the rule.
Well,
Understood.
yeah, it's just temporary until he can find a house.
Well, but
It's just
some
taking
people's
longer than
temporary is
expected.
a week, some people's temporary is 10 years, so
Well, it's not going to be 10
We-
years,
we would
but
like
it
to have
might
some
be
sort
another
of-
year. I'm
Yeah.
saying maybe another year, but they're not a nuisance to the neighbors.
Well,
They're good dogs, they're quiet dogs, they stay in the yard.
There was a neighbor concern of barking, just so you're aware of that, if you did not know that. They didn't say it was these dogs, that their concern is
She
barking
lives
dogs.
about 8 houses down
Yeah.
from me.
I'm just pointing out that they're,
Yes, and my understanding is she's not a dog person, and there's not excessive barking in the neighborhood. Everybody's got a dog in the neighborhood. There's not excessive barking in the neighborhood.
and again, that's really not the issue. The issue is the definition of temporary. In your mind, you think it might take a year.
It might at the most.
And
I mean, we hate to rehome a dog. It's his dog. They're good dogs. They don't cause any trouble for anybody. I mean, most of the neighbors probably don't even know they're back there. You know, they don't bark that much. If somebody comes, of course, they're going to bark. Then they stop. They're not barkers. They're good dogs. They stay in the yard. We're in control. And I'd hate to see anybody I hate to see my son have to rehome one of his dogs. That'd be devastating. I have neighbors here too who are going to speak on my behalf.
are you comfortable with a 3-year grace period so we can revisit this in 3 months? 3 months. 3 months?
I'll go with the 3-year grace period.
I won't. I'm not comfortable.
It's been a long day, Lisa.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I would suggest putting a 90-day review period onto whatever passage of this resolution that you have, so that you can see if there really have been no issues associated with the dogs. We can do that, Mr. Attorney?
Yeah.
You can, sure.
Okay.
There's no problem
And
with
that lady called in because she seen the notice in the paper for 3 dogs. She wasn't happy about 3 dogs at one residence. My understanding is she doesn't care for dogs, and there really isn't there's no excessive barking in the neighborhood.
Lisa, I'm a dog person myself, but I understand, I've got neighbors that have got unruly dogs. So
Yeah.
if we put an end date of a year here, you're going to have to make a decision.
Yeah.
We can't let this go on because we're going to have that same application coming forward by other people. So you understand where we
Yeah.
sit.
But my understanding, Mario told me there was a house in Whitebird Township who at one time did have a 4-dog permit.
And I remember that.
I do, and
So it has been done.
it was, yeah. I mean, there are always circumstances, just like
Exactly,
this is
there's
a
always
circumstance.
circumstances, yep.
That was a dog that was actually in final stages of living, and so it was very temporary. So, if I remember correctly.
But it was
that.
still okay.
That was the facts on that case, and
So what are you saying? You have it reviewed in 90 days, or what do you want to do?
You want to hear from any of the neighbors?
Well,
No,
we
I-
will hear in a second.
yeah.
Scott, do you have any questions of the applicant?
How long has your son and the 4th dog been there now?
Since August. And there's been no complaints, no issues.
So it's coming up on almost a year
Yep.
now.
Yep.
And you're just now applying for the 3-dog license?
I didn't realize there was a limit.
So it'll be coming up on, and you're thinking, and you're right, interest rates and housing prices are,
He's a single guy, so it's, he can't
they're
just go
pretty
out and-
high, and we
Yeah.
don't know that they're going to be changing at all in a year.
No, but we can just see what happens in a year, and if not, then we'll have to make a decision.
And that's, the next part is, yes, let's just be devil's advocate for a minute and say things don't improve, they continue high. At the end of the year, you'll need to make a decision,
Correct.
and it won't be any easier than it is right now.
No, but he has another year to look, and maybe things will change. You just don't know.
No, I said a year. That was my personal opinion. I'll have to
Right, I
get
know.
board.
Yeah.
Well, that's what she had said too, so that's why I just wanted to say, it's not going to, the decision would still be challenging, whether then or now. Okay.
In fairness of the interest rate, just to you, the interest rates did not, a year ago, in August, it's a year now.
But he bought his house before the interest rates went up. He just sold his house
What you said.
in December, moved back home.
But the dog has been in your house since August of
Yeah,
last
because he
year.
couldn't have the dogs there while he was showing the house.
All right, any other questions to the applicant?
No.
All right, thank you, Lisa.
Thanks.
If there's anyone else who wants to speak to this issue?
I could say something about it. I'm Linda Wonka. I live at 1626, which is right next door to her house. She has the 4 labs in the back. She also does daycare in the back. Those dogs never, ever cause any problems with all those children. They're outside running around with the kids. They're quiet. I have 2 Cocker Spaniels myself, and my 2 Cocker Spaniels are actually louder than her 4 dogs. They get along well together. Mine will get at each other. Hers do not. All 4 of her big dogs are very, very quiet. I mean, maybe the lady is hearing my dogs. I'm not sure. But her dogs, and I work in my backyard a lot, and I'm out there all the time. Those kids are playing with the dogs. The dogs are fine with the kids. And the dogs are fine with each other. Everybody gets really along, and there's no excessive barking at all back there. So I really don't understand where that neighbor is coming from. So, and we've lived there since 1978. So.
All right, thank you, Linda. Anyone else?
I'm Carol Schonecker. I live across the street.
You need your address.
1615 Hammond Road.
Thank you.
I've lived in this house for like 33 years. If you don't like dogs, you probably shouldn't live on our block because there's 21, 22 houses. And I'd say probably 18 of them have dogs and some have more than one. There's no problem with the dogs on our block. There just isn't. Everybody takes good care of their dogs. I've met all 4 of their dogs, and they're just big lovers. They'll just lick you to death and kiss you. They're just very friendly dogs. So, and I don't hear them bark. I really don't. The only time you hear dogs bark is if the Amazon truck comes or if somebody's walking their dog down the street. So.
All right, thank you.
Good.
Anyone else?
Same address, 1615.
What was your name?
Greg,
Okay.
I just want to say that everybody's got a dog, but one thing is our yards are the size of football fields, all of us. So there's so much room. It's not like you're living next to somebody. And could you do anything about the 18 deer that come through my backyard and eat flowers?
Several others would like that same thing.
But there's so much room.
All right, anyone else?
I'm actually over on Stillwater Street, 1600, Lori Castro. I'm her friend too, but I also watch the dogs when she needs me because I do pet sitting and stuff, and I have 2 dogs too. But these dogs, I tell you, it made me have a new love for labs because I've had Shih Tzus, I've had other kinds, and they're big dogs, but they're so good. They're so easy, they're so easygoing, and they're so great with the kids too. I wouldn't ask for anything else. And when you were talking, it made me think about, because we live right by duplexes that have 2 side by side. So you get homes that have 4 dogs, they're a duplex side by side. They have 2, they have 2, and it could be worse in that circumstance versus her circumstance. And her son's gonna get a home. He wants to, it's just he needs time to get it. So I just hope you guys put that into consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm Kristen Slav. I'm at 1634 Hammond Road. I wasn't sure if I was going to make it, so I did send an email too. I support having the dogs. I also support the 4th dog. I agree our yards are significantly larger than a city lot. I think that Dogs are part of a person's family, so to ask him to split them up is really unkind. They don't bother anyone. Have a background in special ed, so I've been paying attention since this letter came out to see if it violates anything with your 5-minute rule. And the minute it does, they have not violated any rules about barking. Dogs are going to bark, but it's not excessive at all. And I think that 3 months probably isn't enough time to make sure he has a house. So I would say that we look at coming back, and if people are uncomfortable with a year or whatever, but coming back in like 6 months to give him more time to look for a home too. But they're good dogs. She's a great neighbor. And I think that I think we all can be kind. I think we've all proven that it's not a problem. And I'm 2 houses away, so thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sherry Hod. I live at 1594 Hammond Road in Wiper Lake.
Full disclosure, Sherry and I are family friends, so.
Don't hold that against you.
No, our sons went to Boy Scouts together, so.
I just want to, I've been in the neighborhood for 37 years, and I'm one of the old ones now. And I know there's a lot of new people that have come in, and maybe they don't care for dogs, but like they have said, we have large lots. Everybody has dogs. And I can remember back when I moved in, a neighbor at the end of the street had 4 labs, and they were excellent dogs. What I want to say about these 2 dogs is I have a German Shorthair who is very high strung, but she's well obedient, and I have a Chihuahua that's on the end of her life. This past week, I spent a week with Tucker, who is one of David's dogs, in Devil's Lake. And if we didn't have Tucker there, I have a feeling my Chihuahuas and German Shorthair would have been crazy. So what I want to say is, it is Dave's family, these 2 dogs. And, they're always down at our house playing with our dogs, and they all get along great. I find it really sad because it is a family member. My oldest Chihuahua was 20 and a half years old, and everyone kept saying, put her down. And I didn't. She couldn't hear and she couldn't see. She's still a family member. And now I have one that have a heart murmur. I still won't put her down. It's a family member, and that's what these dogs are to David. And I really hate to see something that they'd have to leave into another home at this time.
Thanks, Sherry.
Yep.
Any other dog lovers want to speak?
Me, I'm a dog lover.
You do have a very supportive neighborhood. Everybody knows everybody. So it's
I do have something I want to say, Mark.
All right, if that's all, I would look for a motion to close the public portion of the meeting.
I'll move to close the public portion of the meeting.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, Steve, you got any thoughts?
Well, I want to be clear. I'm a dog. I had dogs. Okay, I have labs. I had labs. I love my labs. So it's not about the dogs. It's about the temporary. The size of the lot doesn't matter. Dogs, as indicated, they have personality. They are family members. They bark. It's the excessive barking that's the issues. That's not what we're talking about. No. That's not what we're talking about.
You just said that's the issue.
Oh, no. That's
Sorry, the public portion is done.
Yeah.
The board will make a decision now. If you want to stay till open time to make any more other comments, I'd appreciate it.
So the issue really has to do with the length of time that is temporary. I agree that there are 4 dogs. We've all agreed there's 4 dogs. We allow 2 dogs with a special license for a 3rd dog. I only ask that we have some parameters as to when we review this again, because it's a 3-year license, as I remember. And I don't believe 3 years is temporary. It's already been 1 year. So we've got to come to an agreement as what we can live with.
Scott?
Why don't we have a check-in? And I know there was some commentary about the amount of time, but we have had situations where a license is granted, provided we have a recheck within so much amount of time.
Correct.
Either 90 days or whatever. I know 6 months was thrown out, a year was thrown out. So maybe we pick one of that and just to reconfirm, get an update. How are things going? I'm sure all the neighbors will still say things are fine. I'm not doubting that part. But maybe we could get an update as to how things are looking for for progress on moving. And I'm sure your son is anxious to move on, and that would just be nice to get an update as to how that is. I mean, I'll throw that out.
Well, I think 3 months is a fair amount of time because that runs us through the summer. Summers, dogs are out more. By now, it's getting into fall, dogs are in the house more. So I think the 3 months check back is reasonable, just to see it, and maybe we'll get an update, and maybe Dave has found a house already, and then this will go back to the 3-dog license. But I see no reason to go more than a year. We're already bending rules under special, circumstances. And the last one we did this, it was resolved within, I think, 3 or 4 months anyway. And there's no way we want anybody to have to permanently get rid of a dog.
No.
That's not our policy here. But the problem is we also can't have every house in the township having 4, 5, 6 dogs either. So if there's 3 in a year work for you, Steve?
Yes.
Scott?
Yeah.
All right, do I have that in a motion?
I'll make that motion. Review it in 3 months and special license expires in 1 year to revisit.
A second?
So I'm confused.
We're going to revisit the license
We'll revisit the license in a year?
instead of, well, we have to grant it, it's a 3-year license.
If I may, I think what you're saying is you want to, you don't necessarily want to revisit the license. You want to just review the situation, make sure there's been no change, everything's going fine
Right.
in 3 months.
Right.
But the license itself is good for a year.
Correct.
That's what you're saying.
Yes.
So then at the end of the year, she would
The
have to...
license would be revoked, the license would terminate.
Yeah, makes
She
sense.
would reapply.
Unless it's back to 3 dogs.
I'm sorry, Scott, I apologize. Go ahead.
So that's what I was asking is,
Right.
let's just say in 3 months we get a checkup and things are still progressing, and at the end of the year, we find out that David and dog have moved on and there's only 3 dogs left. Does that license then expire and she has to apply for a new 3-dog license?
That's a very good point, because you do, ultimately, well, let me ask you a question here. I'm a little confused.
2 dogs are mine, 2 dogs are his.
That's what,
Oh,
that's what I was hearing.
Okay.
That's why I wanted to clarify.
my
Thank you.
mistake then, sorry.
No,
Okay.
no.
Now, you clarified, thank you. Okay, so Steve, yes, I will second your motion. Thank you.
All right, motion's made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, thank you, folks. Appreciate your input. Like I said, the township's is kind of a complaint-driven township. We don't know of anything going on in the township unless the residents know.
Right.
And we don't have people running around looking for violators and listening for dog barking. So we appreciate any input that you give us. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, we're going to move on. Item 8A, this is the South Winds of Gilfillan. Patrick or Larry, who's going to overview this? All we got was just a little memo that folks were going to show for this.
Staff did receive a request for a few residents of SOG to report or to show here this evening, and we were told that they were going to ask a few questions about the construction project that will be going through there. And they are here to present that.
Larry, you just want to give us a quick update where we're sitting with that project?
Sure. The project has been bid out, and a bid was awarded, and the construction has started. And so right now, the contractor is working on curb segment removal and replacement.
Okay. So I'm gathering most of you folks are here because of that. I'm kind of curious as to, we had how many neighborhood meetings? 2?
Yeah, 2 neighborhood meetings and a public hearing.
Right. So I was hoping most of those questions would be answered. So, and I see you've got one slide up here. Do you guys have a spokesman for the crowd? Otherwise, we'll be here all night if we have to listen to all of you.
Which you have the right to do, by the way.
Yeah.
My name is Wayne Callistad, excuse me, and I live at 730 Gilfillan Lane. Thanks for letting us at least speak to you folks tonight. I know you have a full plate, and the first thing I want to mention is that I'm not here as an individual. I'm here representing 32 families, which are 32 assessment units on Gilfillan Lane. Secondly, I do want to mention, because this is really a basis for this appeal, and that is that the core values of the White Bear Township are listed on your letterhead, and one of those is equitable service. And so the homeowners on Gilfillan Lane at this point don't feel that they're being treated equitably when it comes to how the assessments are being planned out. Okay? All the homeowners do expect an assessment. We're not fighting that. We're fighting the equitability of it and are bringing that to your attention anyway. Because we only want to pay our fair share on the street that we live, not to subsidize the work on other streets. And what I've done is I have this slide up here. I guess it's not going to point on there on the screen, that basically shows from the top of Gilfillan Lane down to 96. That's the area that I want to talk about. And then Gilfillan Lane is a U that comes in both of those. And there's 32 units on Gilfillan Lane. 32 times 4,000 is the share that currently is standing. But if you take a look at Greenhaven Drive, which is even longer, there's 10 for the church, 2.5 for the funeral home, and the city has picked up 4.5. Now, Greenhaven Drive is a full replacement. It's a wide street. Gilfillan Lane is a narrow street, and it only requires resurfacing. Now, Greenhaven Drive beyond on the rest of the map, I think, is a resurface only also. But for the sake of comparison, I think you can see that 32 units for a length that's shorter than a length that gets 17 is an inequitable. And so we feel that there's a great inequity that exists in assigning these assessment units. The residents on Gilfillan Lane feel like they're being assessed more than their fair share. And basically, we're being used to subsidize other parts of this construction project. Basically, to me, that smells like an unfair tax. So we should be assessed for what's happening on our street. The bottom line is what we're going to ask you folks to do is to complete a thorough review of how this assessment was put together, how it's determined, and how it meets the core value of being equitable treatment to your residents. And once complete, we'd like to just see, the report or what happened in this analysis. Okay? You have any questions of me?
I tell you what, Larry, you just want to give us a quick review on how we established the assessments on this project?
Yeah, so I can kind of talk through that. So the project itself, you can see on the screen, the yellow are the streets that are being improved. It doesn't encompass everything. There's Moon Lake Circle, kind of is cut off. We have some other streets that are to the east that are a part of this project. And originally, when we started looking at the project, we were considering mill and overlay for everything. As we did our study, we determined that the segment between 96 and Crescent Curve, we should look at a reclamation, which isn't a full reconstruction. It's instead of taking the top lift of asphalt like we're doing on the rest of the neighborhood, it's removing all the asphalt and replacing it. But we're leaving the existing curbs in place, and we are doing repair items on Greenhaven like we are doing on Gilfillan Lane and some of the other streets. So that's the improvements. The reason we didn't do an adjustment for that segment of road is there's several reasons. We have not only the larger parcel, the church, the funeral home, and some township assigned units, but we also have residential units along that stretch that are single family townhouse units that would be subject to a larger assessment. And really the difference between the what our appraiser's opinion is really $1,000. So if for Greenhaven and the other units, it's $4,000 assessment. We could assess up to $5,000 a unit for that segment that's getting reclaimed. And so we're talking about a difference of $30,000, about 30 units between Crescent Curve down to 96, that the township could capture more assessment if they chose to levy the different assessment. For confusion's sake and the fact that Greenhaven really serves the whole neighborhood, residents on Crescent Curve, Gilfillan Lane, Moonlight Circle all need to use Greenhaven Drive to get out of the neighborhood. We really just didn't think it was necessary to do a change for $1,000 for those units.
Depends on whose pocketbook you're talking about.
Well, see, it wouldn't really change your assessment. It would add to their assessment.
Well, you guys have to explain why the church only gets 10 when they have just as long as Gilfillan Lane.
We're going to have a debate.
Yeah, we need to
Need to cut me off.
we need to assign the floor to somebody speaking.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Well, thank you for at least listening.
Well, no. And
If I could maybe finish. So the assessment process is not concluded yet. So we have awarded a contract, we've started the work, but there is a process for assessments, and that's in September and October-ish timeframe, where the assessment will ultimately to be determined and finalized, and then there's a hearing for that. And that hearing is where people can object to that assessment. This is good to have these discussions now, so we can maybe rethink and look at what you're saying about the assessment. But then in September and October timeframe, you'll get letters, there will be a hearing, and you can, again, solidify your objection. You can appeal the assessment, and if you appeal, that can go to, there's a process for that goes to district court if you ultimately wanted to appeal the assessment. And so that's the only last thing I wanted to add.
All right. Chad, you had something?
I also wanted, you seem to be questioning the method of using units. And I have to tell you, Buzz, 15 or 16 years ago, the township spent probably, I think we discussed it for at least 2 years, maybe more, is what method to use for assessing property. Because we are required to treat people uniformly. And the question is, how do you do that? The methods that were reviewed at that time were, do we go by area? Do we go by front footage? Do we go by units, the use? How do we do that? And it was determined by the board at that time that the best and most equitable policy was to go by units. Because to charge someone who has a single-family lot on a lot that's 200 feet wide versus, go by a front foot, versus someone who has a single-family home on a lot that's only 80 feet wide, that's not fair either, because they all use the street the same. So quite a bit of thought went into that, and quite a bit of study went into it at that time. And I know that because I was part of that process. We studied a number of different cities through the metropolitan area as to how it was done. And one thing that became clear is that almost everyone has gone to a unit system simply because that seemed to be the fairest. Now, I understand what you're talking about, the church and the funeral home. How you calculate those units, it's not easy. But the attempt is to be as fair as possible. And again, there has to be uniformity. And it's not easy to achieve. But the method that the township has chosen, which is units, is probably the fairest and most constitutional method around. It's the most defensible method because ultimately, if the town has to be able to defend the method it used to create the assessment. And Larry is correct. At presently, this is only a pending assessment. The actual amount levied will be determined by the board sometime in the future, sometime in the fall, apparently, when all the costs are in, so we know exactly what everything costs. So at this point, first of all, the unit method is probably the fairest, and it was determined after a lot of thought. A lot of work went into that. And even then, people had questions, and we're not going to have a perfect method. It just is not possible. Because for every method, there's going to be an exception. And you have to have a method. Because if you don't, then the court is going to declare your assessment unconstitutional. Because there was no uniform method of allocating the cost. So that is why the unit method was chosen. And as far as the final assessment, again, will be another hearing. You'll have another right to voice your opinion. And as Lori pointed out, you do have the right to appeal your assessment. Which is another point, too. Keep in mind that the other test for a special assessment is what's called the special benefit. No municipality has any right to assess for more than the benefit received. And that is the question. How much benefit does everyone receive from a new street? New street in front of, a new street's a new street. So the question is, how much does that raise everyone's value? And looking at that diagram there, the lots are uniform in size. I would suspect that the increase in value is going to be pretty uniform across the board. So, I know what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. But those are the factors that the town has to take into account when it makes its decision. It's not easy, let me tell you.
It's just another thing too. It would be literally counterproductive for us to get one company to do one road at a mill and overlay and try to get another bid for the next project right next door for a complete restoration. So that's why it's bid as one. It's contracted out as one. And it's not that it's just you guys. We bond for these. All these road improvements are bonded, which means some of this expense is spread out throughout the whole township. So everybody's incurring a cost for every road improvement we do. It's not just who's being assessed, it's the whole town. Now, years ago, we used to try to assess the full amount to the affected residents, which the costs have gotten to be so absorbent, we can't do that. That's why we bond. That's why we do unit costs, so we can keep it fair to everyone. So it's not like we're picking on one person or somebody else has got a different road. You all use the same roads. You all use the roads in the township. So we have to be fair for everyone in the township. Scott, you got anything to add?
No.
Steve? No. All right. Just state your name and address, please.
Jim DeJarnos, I live at 731 Gilfillan Lane, and thank you for letting us appear tonight to ask questions. And what you're saying makes some sense. I think that what we're having a hard time understanding is what you're saying, Chad, the unit. It seemed like a unit should be the same length, regardless of where on the road you're looking at putting in the new pavement. And that's what Wayne alluded to. Because if you look at Gilfillan Lane, we have 16 units on the north side and 16 on the south side. So that's 32 units that we have for that section of road. And what Wayne was saying before is, if you look at the section from the church over to the funeral home, that's about the same length, but they have 10 units. So we have 32 units in ours and 10 units. They're getting a wider road with full 4 or 5 inches of blacktop. And we're getting, if you look at the residents in Gilfillan are splitting that road in half. So we've got people on this side paying the $4,000, that side paying the $4,000, $8,000 for the strip of road that's one residence wide. So it doesn't seem fair that way. Plus we're getting the overlay, and 10 years from now, an overlay will probably need replacement further, before a full 4 or 5 inch road would need replacement. And at that time, who's going to subsidize us when we need a road replaced, earlier than somebody else who's got the full thickness? So I think that's our concern, is we just didn't you're talking about a unit as the best way to do it, but it just seemed like a unit should be a unit and the same for everybody, and it isn't. I think that's mainly what I wanted to say, and we request that the process for assessing costs be revisited or visited and see if there's more of an equitable way to do it. You mentioned we can't do it piecemeal.
I know when they did the Gilfillan Circle, that was a separate project about 3 years ago. That was all by itself, and they paid $3,000 per household.
But I believe that was included in another project, though. It wasn't done by itself.
Okay,
Yep, Moon Lake Circle.
okay,
I'm sorry, Weston Woods Way.
okay.
Well, once in a while, we do have to pick a road that's kind of sitting by itself and lump it into a package. So you might see that around the town being spread up a little bit.
Birch Lake Boulevard's
Birch Lake Boulevard,
Prime example.
North Birch Lake Boulevard is a prime example. It's by itself. That's part of this project. What was bid out?
Well, that would be the.
Maybe I can add some clarity on the unit, how we calculate that unit. I know you have different lot sizes in your stretch. You have the kind of the smaller lot size, and you have kind of a general common area. But we use the standard lot width to calculate our number of units. So the township approved ordinances for a residential lot. So I'm forgetting what that is, but I think it's like 80 feet and then 12,000 square foot. So how many 80-foot, 12,000 square foot lots can fit on those other larger parcels is how we compute it. And we work with the township planner to make that determination, because you have to take out wetlands. Wetlands aren't possible you wouldn't be able to subdivide in because of the wetlands in the way. So you kind of take out those areas, and then you start assigning how many units would make up that frontage, if that makes sense. So it's not the size of your lot, it's the size of the township's ordinances for lot size.
I understand what you're saying, but yes, it doesn't really make a lot of sense when you look at 10 units versus 32 units and each paying the same amount of dollars, but that's what I wanted to say, so thank you very much.
Well, just one thing, Jim, we have to, when we start these projects, we have to go with the engineer's costs and come up with a price that we're going to have to look at. Now, we can't exceed that price, but it can go down. And we did get some favorable bidding on this project. I don't remember the numbers, but it was less than what the engineer had figured. So when it's all said and done, unless we have overruns or other expenses, that number is a little bit fluid. Like I said, it's never going to go over that, but it can come down. And we won't know that till this fall.
I believe it's called a preliminary assessment, and that's for that reason.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim.
Ed Strout, 701 Gilfillan Lane. My question would be, will Gilfillan Court and Weston Woods Way, will they be sharing in any of this cost? Because a large portion of this cost is Greenhaven, and they have to use Greenhaven also. I don't see any, I mean, obviously they should not have to pay a full share since their particular roads are not being replaced. But I feel like the cost for doing Greenhaven, which is probably it's the longest part of the project, I think they should also have to pay in that because they get the benefit.
Well, and like I said before, indirectly they do, because we have to bond for this. So I hate to say it, but everybody's taxes are going to go a little bit towards these roads. So every time we do an improvement, everyone in the town has a little bit of a skin in the game. Anyone else? All right, but you know what? The board really appreciates, I like turnouts like this. That means you people are engaged, and we want to make sure all your questions and all your concerns are at least, we're hearing them. And this fall, you'll have another chance to come back and go over the final numbers.
And if you choose to do so, appeal legally.
Yep, and there's a process for that night. So, all right, thanks, folks.
Thank you very much. We have written several emails, so I think you've probably gotten those through, which are kind of
Sure.
We have them.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
You're lucky I got Sherry after that one can talk.
Oh, really?
You should, if you wanted, she'd go for an hour. All right,
Well, thank you.
I just gotta wait to see if anybody's gonna be here for open time.
We have 8B to cover too, Mr. Chair.
Oh, that's right, sorry.
I'm here for you.
Yeah, okay, why don't we go to that right now?
Sure. I can get some background, and then Larry and I would like to lasso you guys into prioritizing some requests that we'd like to make. I received notice from Senator Gustafson's office on Friday of the additional capital improvement funds that the state was made available to claim from any governmental entity within the state, including some nonprofits, to go towards infrastructure costs and projects. I believe the number was $3 billion they set aside this year. And just for clarity's sake, this is this discussion of this or these funds are separate from the $7 million that the township has already received. This is over and above up to 50% cost share. Pretty, I don't want to say flexible because that would give everybody the wrong idea, but it's got kind of a wide swath of infrastructure. It's roads, it's water, it's sewer, you name it, it's going to be in there as a potential for a request. Now, as I did just receive this on Friday, I apologize for making this a last minute thing, but we need to have our initial request letter into the state by
16th.
the 16th. Yep. Now, there are subsequent deadlines where you can winnow it down a little bit as to what your request is going to be and get a little more precise. But the initial one needs a resolution from the governmental entity that will be overseeing these projects. So, engineering, planning, public works, and finance all met this morning to get this in front of you guys. And what we'd like to do now is we think it would be a stronger application if we had a narrower focus. We initially were going to do the resolution as has been distributed to you here and just attach this. But I think what we want to do is we want to have a brief discussion with the three of you as in your mind through all the discussions that we've been having over the last 4 years about the township's needs for infrastructure, what you consider to be priority, and we can get a jump on getting into the queue with this resolution and identifying those priorities. So with that, I'd hand it off to
Wait, just
Brains.
a question here.
Sure.
So we don't have to, I noticed the resolution doesn't have any numbers. We don't have to,
Nope.
okay.
Not yet, not initially.
All right, and then the way I'm hearing it, so the Minnesota Management and Budget's going to give us the parameters of how we can distribute this money?
Yep. This is kind of our open the door, this resolution that's in front of you. So yes, OMB has got oversight.
Could they change the definition that you just explained to us as being flexible to less flexible?
I don't know. This is statutory now, is out of the legislative session. I think they're going straight off the language that was passed with the bonding bill. So,
Mr. Chair and Town Board, I can maybe add a little bit more to what Patrick has already mentioned here. So every 2 years, the legislature typically bonds for projects. And so in 2022, they couldn't agree. And so a bonding bill wasn't approved that year. And so in 2023, just a few weeks ago, they approved a bonding bill. And so it's kind of off. The year is off. They like to bond every even year. So 2022, 2024, 2026. And so
They're going to have another bonding bill next year?
that's right. So this is for 2024 projects. And so it's to get our projects in. And they somewhat have a compressed time frame because they are typically planning every 2 years, and now we only have a year. And so and they had to wait till the 2023 whether it was going to be approved or not to start with the process here. So we got the information from our legislator, And really, these are projects like Patrick mentioned that are all statewide. And at looking at the instructions, they want to address life and safety issues, preserve it and repair existing facilities. Provide, and we have the town would have to provide a 50% local match. Proposed using as well, including public community engagement. We do need a local resolution supporting the application from the governing body. That's what we're trying to do tonight. Aid in making Minnesota the best state in the country for kids to grow up. Integrate climate preparedness or clean energy. Address undue historical and systematic disparities and inequalities, including based on race, gender, veteran status, geography, and economic status. So those are the criteria that we want to select projects that would probably score better because you're competing against every other community in the state. They also ask if we want to have legislators visit our community and go over these projects with us.
Sure do.
So
Well, it's only to our advantage.
It is.
It is.
yes, I think this township is unique in different than any other township.
And as
So-
our discussions back in January with Senators Dibble and Gustafson, I would welcome them to be back working with us and supporting us with this, and I'm sure they would. I think they understand the unique nature of the township now. In particular, what has been outlined in the resolution here, what we're lacking.
Amen.
So we're looking for support on the resolution itself, and then between now and the 16th, we need to ferret down which projects we want to apply for. And a few of them come to mind as we're discussing things today. The Otter Lake Trail, which we did not get funding for in the active transportation plan. We already have a lot of information prepared for that, that we can use and submit. The other trail on H2 as well. The Public Works building remodel, which would add female facilities for that structure, could be something that might score well because it's solving an inequity and a gender issue there.
And I would also add that all these things are in our existing CIP.
Yes. Yeah, that's really the first step, is to have a good CIP with preliminary costs. And that's what we have, and that sets us in a good spot to apply for different funding sources. So those were three that came to mind, and the town has the project matrix, and we're really interested to hear what you think about projects and what you would recommend us taking this step.
I would also add, Mr. Chair, if I may.
You may.
Okay. I would also like to get in addition to what Larry has mentioned here, some more street projects, because like I said, we have champions for that cause right now in place. And I was very specifically told upon the awarding of the $7 million was that transportation in particular is looking to help us solve more sustainable issues for the township in terms of funding that go towards our roads. So the three that Larry has mentioned here for sure, I'd like to get 2 or 3 more road projects coming up here in the next year too.
Well, it's basically just accelerating our road improvement timing.
Yep.
Because we've been worried about it because of the cost of bonding and everything, that we've been slowing it down.
So at one point, Larry.
Restrooms over there.
At one point, Larry, we had decided that, I believe it's the Southeast Bowl Eagle Lake area, we might pump the brakes on because I believe the word challenging was used.
Yes.
should we decide that we want to speed that up and the bicycle path along H2, which I also remember hearing the word challenging, how will that impact staff for the township and staff for TKDA? Are we going to have bodies to accelerate this?
Well, our company has 300 plus individuals. We move parts around between different functional groups that can respond to different client needs, and that's where how we would handle it.
So I'm sure that other municipalities who are your clients are also hearing this information and they're wanting to accelerate their own. So I appreciate hearing that you have flexibility to move people around. They may be saying the same thing to their clients. We have flexibility. We can move people around.
So, if I may, in addition to what we discussed today, is the timing component with what all these proposed potential projects could be to fall in line with this request, how we're going to request working the 7 million into our budget as well, and all the timing that's associated with that. So what staff is working on, starting today, is we are going to get a representative from Senator Gustafson's office as well as the Office of Management and Budget to walk us through timing components in conjunction with all of this and how it flows through our funding, how it flows with our project matrix, our capital improvement program plan, all that, and get us some kind of a roadmap in place for how this all works. Because I think it was Tom that says we're well within our right to ask for that guidance because nobody's ever said yes to us before. No. So we're in foreign territory, uncharted water. We really are. And I think this is a good time to get some guidance and get this all coordinated together.
Well, Patrick, are you looking for the board to put some input on this application sheet then?
So I would agree with Larry's 3. The challenging projects as well, I think would be good ones too. Also keep in mind not to go too far out in our projects, maybe keep in mind the ones that are more on our immediate 18-month radar.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, to the southeast Bald Eagle Lake area, I think we had decided or just defaulted that wasn't going to happen this year. More likely, potentially next year, when we already have a pretty big project with the Mallard Ponds area. That's just one, but it's pretty big.
Mm-hmm.
So those two seem pretty doggone
Yep, right off the bat.
assertive, aggressive to me.
Yeah, the Mallard Ponds, from a design standpoint, isn't. It has curb and gutter, so we're talking about a reclamation project. The design standpoint isn't as hard as the Bald Eagle area with the complex drainage issues we're seeing in that neighborhood.
Oh, I see. Okay.
The other aspect that we want to think about is trying to hit those criteria. So safety, if we have a street that is seeing more concerns about safety, would probably score better if we can maybe identify some of our more collector, larger streets. Those might score better. And then we'd have to make the case for that in our application. So if you give us guidance to pursue maybe X street that meets the criteria better, we can dig into that a little more before the 16th. And
Are we also going to want to look at all the ratings though to see what ratings have moved in a year by next year?
True.
I mean, some roads that are a 3 it might go to a 2, which is going to accelerate that.
They're not going to improve with age.
Well, as of now, though, the resolution, and then we'll work on having a plan by what? Do you have to have that plan also by the 16th?
Those choices, yeah.
Okay.
Detail on the choices to come at later dates. So they want the initial resolution with the prioritized projects highlighted. That's how I read it, right, Larry?
And we could put generic on the roadway if we want to do a roadway application, that we could just call it collector street roadway improvements. And because you're right, we could have a street crop up that needs improvement, like Hammond and Township Parkway is a perfect example. They carry a lot more traffic. It's a heavier traffic. It's more of a collector.
Would Greenhaven count as a collector? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
That
Well, it's too late for that, but I was just trying to understand what's a collector.
Yeah, I mean, typically the township doesn't get municipal state aid, but communities that do get municipal state aid, they put their collectors on that system. So they get money for those collector roadways that don't have as much density. They don't have as many driveways and homes on them. And that's how they use their funds to supplement kind of some of those disparities that we're hearing about here from the public.
When you prepared the pavement improvement plan, was there a map in there that showed what are collectors within the township?
No. I mean,
because I'm trying to envision what those are.
Myself. Most of ours are county roads.
Well, yes. Is it possible to get something like that relatively easily, quickly?
Yeah, I think I have a number of streets in mind that would be considered collectors.
It would at least help me.
That would help me also, because I'm trying to think. Everything I think of is a county road.
Well, it sounds like we've got a fairly good list to start with. I mean, how many do you think you need to be on that list?
We were thinking five or six.
Well, it seems to me I've already heard 5 or 6, so.
Yeah, so the initial 3 that Larry mentioned, what were the last 2 now? Guys? What's that?
Oh, I have a question on area. One of these things. Overlake area, that's north of Bald Eagle Lake, right?
Yeah, it's past the launch.
And that's where all those roads are real crappy, the sewer systems are not good up that way. I mean, that is a...
Can I make a suggestion? So the 3 you mentioned, the 2 specifically that have been discussed here, and as a 6th, you might want to just highlight as collector roads, ongoing collector road issues that we can identify as best we can.
Well, sanitary and sewer and water improvements as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. The spectrum's wide.
Well, in this grid, which, by the way, did I tell you I like this grid?
A couple times.
I just want to make sure. You have a column that says purpose and need, and in several places, safety, drainage, pavement, water supply maintenance, water supply resiliency.
Yep.
I mean, safety, bing, bing, bing.
Yep. I think we got a good list.
I like this grid.
No kidding?
I just can't read it.
Yeah, there's a lot on the list.
It's good.
I got to take my glasses off to read it.
So can we start with that?
All right, so tonight you just need a motion to accept this resolution?
Yeah, can we identify the 5 that were by consensus discussed here, and then a 6th, just a catch-all for our collector streets? We can word that 6th one so that it's...
How are we going to identify these 6 that we just talked about? Because we don't really have...
Oh, let's review. Otter Lake Trail.
Yes.
The
H2 trail.
H2 Trail. What was the 3rd one?
Public
Works.
Model.
Public Works building.
Those are the 3. Then we had a couple of neighborhood projects too that were mentioned.
Yeah, the South Shore.
Southeast Bald Eagle Lake area
Southeast Bald Eagle Lake area.
and Mallard Ponds area.
That was the one. Mallard Ponds. I say we start with those 5, add the 6th as a catch-all for collector streets in the township, which I'm sure we'll identify. We take our chances. At the end of the day, I get nothing.
Does this resolution have to have a number?
No.
Not yet. I'm sure they will eventually.
will.
won't it?
all right.
I
So
mean, this is one of 10.
Right, so it's just subtitled, supporting the effort and secure funding, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
for as much as possible.
Just fork it all over here.
All right, we got that covered?
We good?
Do we hear a motion?
I'll make that motion, but to our 6 items that we've identified,
And to adopt this resolution?
adopt this resolution, yes, as noted.
I will second.
All right, motion made, second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Awesome, thanks, guys.
right.
Would you like me, this is one of the things that we discussed today, if I can get Senator Gustafson's office and an OMB representative to join us at the executive committee, is that a healthy discussion, or should we save that as minutia for staff to work through?
I don't know, I think it would be good to have them at the exec meeting.
I will make that my first effort to try to get them there, but if they can't get there, I'm going to get them as soon as we can.
All right.
Okay. All right, thanks.
All right, seeing as though there's no one here for open time, I need a motion to go into closed attorney-client privilege.
I'll move the board meeting into a closed session for attorney-client meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, you want to make sure Lisa's Did you?
I'm sorry. I like, let's have a fallback position.
Nine, 10.
All right, Chad, you want to recap?
I'll make a motion to come out of closed session.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, Chad.
The purpose of the closed session was to, again, to discuss the ongoing litigation involving White Bear Lake and potential settlements of that litigation.
All right, that concludes our agenda. Obviously, the place is cleared. Need a motion to receive agenda material and supplements.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I need a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
8:30.